Hello and a very warm welcome viewers. You're watching the Question Now show from the Parliament House complex, the show where we bring all the important unstart questions asked by the members of the upper house and the response given by the government. I'm KRITI MISHRA and joining me is my colleague Rajat.
Thanks KRITI. This is one show which gets you all the information about transaction in the Parliament and of course in the upper house, vis-a-vis questions that are asked by the members and replies given by the government. Well, KRITI, as we say in every episode, they are broadly speaking three categories of questions.
The start ones, the unstart ones and also the short notice ones. Well, start ones are those questions of which replies are also given on the floor of the House and the members can also ask supplementaries from the ministers. The unstart questions are those questions of which the reply is given by the government in written format. And our show focuses on all the important unstart questions. Well, the questions, those were asked by the members of the upper house during the 253rd session of the Rajya Sabha, which was just concluded.
Well, how these questions are asked and how they are answered. Here is a small presentation. A member submits his or her questions at least 15 days before the office of Rajya Sabha chairman. The Rajya Sabha Secretariat chooses the questions to be answered through a draw of ballots. Separate ballots are held for starred and unstarred questions. The questions are scrutinized for admissibility under the current rules and precedents. Questions are disallowed if they are not in order. Advance copies of chosen questions are sent to ministry or departments concerned. The ministry concerns collect information to prepare the reply. The minister concerned reply to starred questions on the floor of the House and provides written answers to unstarred questions. Up to 160 unstarred questions are listed every day in a separate list. Well, there you saw how these questions are answered. So KRITI, it's time to begin the show. Well, the first question of this edition of the show that was asked by member Anand Sharma from Ministry of Steel. The member asked about the steel output across the country and if the output contracted during the lockdown period from March 2020 till November and December of 2020 and what steps has been taken by the government to address the same.
While the Ministry of Steel has had several rounds of consultations with various stakeholders during the lockdown period for boosting the production of steel, and this response has been given by Steel Minister Dharmendra Pradhan. He goes on to say that Ministry of Steel also notified a nodal officer in the ministry to receive representations from the steel industry on issues arising out of lockdown for speedy redressal. Guidelines issued by the Ministry of Home Affairs from time to time have facilitated speedy resumption of steel production. The Ministry of Steel has also organized the following webinars with relevant stakeholders to enhance the overall demand for steel in the country. Oil and gas sector, 16 June 2020. Ispat IRDA, enhancing steel usage, 30th of June 2020. Housing and civil aviation sector, 18th August 2020. Domestically manufactured iron and steel products policy has also been suitably amended, wide notification dated 31st of December 2020 in order to align to its revised public procurement preference to Make in India Order 2017. The minimum value addition has been enhanced from 15% to 20% and the policy is now applicable to all procurement above Rs 5 lakh and includes EPC contracts among other changes. So that was the response of the government for boosting steel production during the lockdown period. Now let's move on to the next question, and this one has been asked by member Jyotirudit Scindia, and this question is to the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. And the member has asked the government about the steps that it has taken to maintain the strategic crude oil reserves.
Well, reply to this query is given by Minister of Petroleum Dharmendra Pradhan. Well, as per the reply, Indian Strategic Petroleum Reserve Limited, that is ISPRL, a Government of India special purpose vehicle, has established strategic petroleum reserves facilities with total capacity of 5.33 million metric tons at 3 locations, Visakhapatnam, Mangaluru and Padur. As per the consumption pattern of 2019-20, the total capacity is estimated to provide for about 9.5 days of crude oil requirement. In addition, the oil marketing companies in the country have storage facilities for crude oil and petroleum products for 64.5 days. Thus, the current total national capacity for storage of crude oil and petroleum products is 74 days. Taking advantage of low crude oil prices in April and May 2020, the strategic petroleum reserve have been filled to full capacity, leading to notional savings of approximately rupees 5,000 crore. Under phase 2 of Strategic Petroleum Reserve Program, the government has given in principle approval in June 2018 for establishing 2 additional SPR facilities with total storage capacity of 6.5 million metric tons at 2 locations, Chandikhol in Odisha and Padur in Karnataka. As per the consumption pattern of 2019-20, 6.5 million metric tons SPR capacity is estimated to provide for about additional 12 days of India's crude oil requirement. Well, moving to other question of this edition of the show that was asked by member K.C. Venugopal from Ministry of Labour. The member sought details of feedback and discussion mechanism by the ministry before introducing the new labour code.
Well, Government of India held 9 tripartite consultations with the relevant stakeholders before ensuring the passage of these new 4 labour codes. And now let's take a look at this detailed response given by Labour and Employment Minister Santosh Kumar Gangwar. And he says that government undertook 9 tripartite consultations on 4 labour codes, which are Code on Wages, Industrial Relations Code and Occupational Safety, Health and Working Conditions Code, and also the Code on Social Security. It also invited all central trade unions, employees association and state governments. All these codes were also placed on the website for inviting comments from all stakeholders, including general public. All the codes were referred to the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Labour for examination. The Parliamentary Standing Committee on Labour, in the process of examination of the codes, had also invited the views and suggestions from trade unions, organizations, individuals, stakeholders, and also took oral evidence of the representatives of central trade unions and various other associations and organizations, and also the stakeholders. Many demands of the central trade unions have been agreed upon. Some of the major proposals which form the part of the bills have also been dropped after receipt of suggestions from the trade unions, and they are as under: restriction on entry of outsiders in trade unions as office bearers, option for members of Employees Provident Funds Organization, which is EPFO, to choose between Employees Pension Scheme and National Pension Scheme, option for statutory and compulsorily membership of Employees State Insurance Corporation, which is ESIC, or health insurance products available in the market, go slow as strike upper wage ceiling in the definition of worker. The following major demands were agreed for inclusion in the codes, and these include recognition of trade unions at central and state levels, raising of bilateral disputes of trade unions in tribunals, providing option to state governments to increase retrenchment compensation, universalization of social security through formulation of schemes by becoming member of ESIC and EPFO, and entitlement for various benefits applicable to members of ESIC and EPFO. The goal of the Code on Social Security 2020 is to extend social security to all employees and workers, either in organized sector or unorganized sector. The Code on Social Security 2020 establishes a social security fund for social security and welfares of the unorganized workers, gig workers and platform workers. The Social Security Fund comprises of funding received from the central government, the state government, contributions collected from the beneficiaries of the scheme or the employers, corporate social responsibility fund or any other such source as may be specified in the scheme, and amount collected from the composition of the offences. With coming into force the Code on Social Security 2020, it will be possible to formulate schemes extending the benefits available to members of Employees Provident Fund Organizations and Employees State Insurance Corporation for all types of workers, including home-based worker, self-employed worker and other workers in the unorganized sector. So that was the detailed response given by the Labour and Employment Minister. Now let's move on to the next question, and this one has been asked by member VISHAMBHAR NISHAD. And this question is to the Ministry of Jal Shakti. And the member has sought details of the steps taken by the government to reduce the content of boron and arsenic in groundwater.
Well, the reply to this question was given by Minister of Jal Shakti, Ratan Lal Kataria. The ministry says that as reported by Central Groundwater Board, districts having isolated pockets with presence of arsenic in groundwater has been annexed in the reply. The Central Groundwater Board has not carried out any study on the occurrence of boron elements in groundwater in the country. Government in partnership with states is implementing Jal Jeevan Mission to provide potable tap water supply to every rural household in the country by 2024. Under Jal Jeevan Mission, while planning water supply schemes to provide tap water supply to rural households, priority is given to quality affected habitations. At the time of the announcement of the Jal Jeevan Mission on 15th of August 2019, only 3.23 crore households in the country were reported to have tap water supply. Since then, 3.85 crore more rural households have been provided with tap water connections. Thus, on date, out of 19.19 crore rural households across the country, 7.08 crore, that is 37% households, have tap water supply. The statewide status of households with tap water supply is in public domain, which is also available on the dashboard in the website of the ministry.
Joining us on the Question Hour show is Rajya Sabha MP, Mr. VISHAMBHAR Prasad NISHAD. Sir, welcome to Rajya Sabha TV and thank you so much for joining us.
धन्यवाद.
Mr. NISHAD, during the 253rd session of Rajya Sabha, you asked a question from the government about the content of boron and arsenic in groundwater. So, how important is the issue and what is your take on government's response?
मैं विशेष तौर पर मैं बुंदेलखंड से आता हूँ. बुंदेलखंड के क्षेत्र में हमने कई गांव, खास तौर पर बांदा में हमारे एक मवई था, चैतारा था और मरौली गांव था. वहाँ पर पानी की अग्नि की समस्या होने के कारण वहाँ लोग विकलांग हो रहे थे और उनके कुष्ठ रोग हो रहे थे, तमाम तरह की बीमारियाँ हो रही थी. तो वहाँ पे हम लोगों ने फिर वहाँ के जितने हैंड पंप थे जो नीचे ग्राउंड वाटर उसको बंद करा करके वहाँ पे भी वाटर सप्लाई के लिए हम लोगों ने बाहर से पानी ला करके उस गांव में देने का काम किया. इसी तरह से पूरे देश में कई राज्यों में ये समस्या है. तो इसके लिए गवर्नमेंट को ये चाहिए कि अलग से जो है जिस तरह से वाटर की व्यवस्था होनी चाहिए. जैसे हमारा बुंदेलखंड है, डैमों से पानी मिलता है, तो उनके लिए अलग से पानी व्यवस्था करनी चाहिए. और मेन समस्या जो वाटर लेवल डाउन होता जा रहा है उसके लिए केंद्र सरकार को चिंता करना चाहिए कि हम लोग इसको कैसे व्यवस्था करें. क्योंकि जब हम नक्शा पास करते हैं कोई मकान का, तो उसमें जो है नक्शा पास होने के साथ साथ उसमें हार्वेस्टिंग टैंक बनाने की व्यवस्था होनी चाहिए कि जो रेन वाटर है उसको कलेक्ट किया जाना चाहिए, जिससे कि रेन वाटर से जो है तो पानी कलेक्ट होगा और खेत का पानी खेत में रोकने की व्यवस्था होगी तो वाटर लेवल हमारा ठीक होगा. तो जो अग्नि की संख्या मतलब मात्रा बढ़ रही है तो वो कम होगी धीरे धीरे. और जो हमारे देश में तमाम क्षेत्रों में ये अग्नि की मात्रा ज़्यादा पाई जा रही पानी की, तो वहाँ तो पाइपलाइन से ही दूसरे क्षेत्रों से पानी लाना पड़ेगा. उसके लिए हम लोगों ने कई जगह प्रयास किए हैं और वहाँ सफल भी रहा और वहाँ के सारे हैंडपम्प बंद कराने पड़े तो अब लोग ठीक हो गए और जो बीमारी बढ़ रही थी उससे कम हुई है. तो लोगों को सलाह दी गई थी कि कुएँ जितने कुएँ थे उनको कुएँ बंद कराए गए, जो हैंडपम्प थे उनको बंद कराए गए और बंद कराने के बाद वाटर सप्लाई लाइन डाली गई और फिर हर घर को पानी की व्यवस्था कराने के लिए व्यवस्था की गई. खासतौर हमारे जनपद बांदा में सदर तहसील में मवई बुजुर्ग पड़ता है और एक गांव पड़ता है चैतारा और तीसरा पड़ता है मरौली. वहाँ लोग नदी से पानी पीते थे खारा पानी होने की वजह से, तो हम लोगों ने उसके लिए वाटर की व्यवस्था कराई थी.
So, what are the steps that you suggest?
क्योंकि देखिए सबसे बड़ी समस्या है कि जब पेड़ों की कटान बढ़ रही है तो हमें पेड़ों की कटान पर रोक लगानी चाहिए. क्योंकि जब वन क्षेत्र कम होगा तो वर्षा कम होगी, तो वन क्षेत्र बढ़ाना चाहिए. पहले ये समस्या नहीं थी, वन क्षेत्र ज़्यादा था, धीरे धीरे आबादी बढ़ती गई, अब शहर बढ़ रहे हैं, खेत कम हो रहे हैं, गांव ख़त्म हो रहे हैं. अगर दिल्ली के आसपास देख लें तो यहाँ वही समस्या है. आगरा देखें ये समस्या है. तो तमाम ऐसे क्षेत्रों में ये जो समस्या पैदा हो रही है, इसके लिए हमको ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा वृक्षारोपण करा के पेड़ लगा करके और पानी जो वर्षा का पानी है उसको रोकने के लिए गवर्नमेंट की व्यवस्था करना चाहिए. उसके लिए जो है खेत का पानी, खेत योजना बना करके पानी को रोक करके, और जिससे किसानों को फ़ायदा भी होगा और हमारा वाटर लेवल ठीक होगा। और जो पहले कुछ यहाँ जो गलतियाँ हुई थी, दिल्ली में जैसे बोरवेल बना करके गंदा पानी पूरा ज़मीन पर डाल देते थे, उस पर कार्रवाई हो गई, उसको बंद किया गया। तो ऐसे जो कमियाँ आई हैं, तो उसकी वजह से अब दिल्ली में सुधार हुआ है। और हम लोग देख रहे हैं कि सरकार कोशिश करती है कि हम लोग जो है तो ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा पेड़ लगाएं। पेड़ तो लगते हैं, लेकिन उनकी देख रेख नहीं होती। उसकी वजह से भी वातावरण, और जितने वन क्षेत्र के एरिया हैं, तो उसके लिए वन विभाग को भी सख्त किया जाना चाहिए। जो वन क्षेत्र है उसको कम नहीं किया जाना चाहिए। और जैसे मान लीजिए कोई मकान बनाता है, उसके लिए रेस्ट्रिक्ट कि 2 वृक्ष लगाएंगे, लेकिन लोग हलफनामा दे देते हैं, लेकिन वृक्ष नहीं लगाते हैं। तो इस वजह से भी वर्षा का और पानी का जो है उससे संबंध रहता है, जिससे कि आने की क्षमता बढ़ती है और वाटर लेवल डाउन होता है।
सर, इम्प्लीमेंटेशन कैसे कड़ाई से होना चाहिए?
सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने एक आदेश दिया था कि जितने देश के तालाब हैं उनका अतिक्रमण रोका जाए। पहले गांव का पानी जाता था, तालाब होता था, तालाब में चला जाता था, एक ऑटोमेटिक वहाँ पर एक सिस्टम बना था कि पूरे गलियों से घर का पानी, गली का पानी जा कर के तालाब में जाता था। ख़ास तौर पर जो शहर विकसित हो गए, वहाँ तालाब बांट दिए गए, तालाबों में बस्तियाँ बस गईं, और उस वजह से जो है जो तालाब ख़त्म किए गए। तो इसके लिए केंद्र सरकार को जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने आदेश दिया था कि वो तालाब पुनर्जीवित किए जाने चाहिए, और जो तालाबों में अतिक्रमण हो गए हैं उसको केंद्र सरकार और प्रदेश सरकारें इसमें सख्ती से पालन करें, जिससे कि पानी स्टोर की व्यवस्था हो, और जो हमारे पुराने तालाब थे वो पुनर्जीवित हो सकें। और कुएँ भी बंद हो गए, नहीं कुओं से भी हमारा अच्छा जो है रिचार्ज होता था, वाटर रिचार्ज होता था। तो यही इसके सुझाव।
सर, चलते चलते लोगों के लिए क्या मैसेज है आपका?
हम तो लोगों से ये कहते हैं कि आज हम लोग जो है, जो पानी हमारा बहुमूल्य है, आगे चल के वाटर युद्ध होगा। हमने तो पार्लियामेंट में जब बुंदेलखंड के बारे में हमने बात की थी, तो उसमें हमने कहा था कि देश की रक्षा के लिए हम लोग आर्मी रखते हैं। उसी तरह से हमको वाटर के लिए भी व्यवस्था करना चाहिए कि हमको पानी को सेव करके इसके लिए व्यवस्था करनी चाहिए, जिससे आगे आने वाले समय में हम लोगों को शुद्ध पानी, पेयजल मिल सके। तो इसकी भी व्यवस्था होनी चाहिए।
All right, sir. Those are important suggestions that you're making. On that note, thank you so much for joining us and speaking to us.
राज्य सभा टीवी को बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
Well, moving to next question of this edition of the show that was asked by member Rajmani Patel from Ministry of Labour and Employment. The member asked if Government of India is contemplating to have a comprehensive national policy on the migrant labourers given their distressing state during the lockdown.
Well, in the response, the government has mentioned several steps that it has taken to allay the concerns of the migrant workers, and this response has been given by Labour and Employment Minister Santosh Kumar Gangwar. He goes on to say that in order to safeguard the interests of the migrant workers, the central government had enacted the Interstate Migrant Workmen Regulation of Employment and Conditions of Service Act 1979. This act has now been subsumed in the Occupational Safety, Health and Working Conditions Code 2020. The above mentioned code, commonly known as OSH code, provides for decent working conditions, minimum wages, grievances, redressal mechanism, protection from abuse and exploitation, enhancement of the skills and social security to all category of organized and unorganized workers, including the migrant workers. The code is applicable to every establishment in which 10 or more interstate migrant workers are employed or were employed on any day of the preceding 12 months. To boost employment and livelihood opportunities for migrant workers returning to villages in the wake of COVID-19 outbreak, Government of India launched Garib Kalyan Rozgar Abhiyan. This Abhiyan involves intensified and focused implementation of 25 target-driven works to provide employment and create infrastructure in the rural areas of 116 districts of 6 states with a resource envelope of 50,000 crore rupees. With a total expenditure of 39,293 crore, the Abhiyan has already generated 50 crore 78 lakh 68,671 man days employment. And now let's move on to the last question of this edition of the Question Hour show, and this one has been asked by member Sanjay Singh. And this question is to the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. And the member has sought details about the benefits that have been extended to the marginalized sections of the society through various schemes.
Well, Kriti, the reply to this query was given by Minister of Urban Affairs and Housing Hardeep Singh Puri. In the reply, the ministry says that Government of India launched Smart Cities mission on 25th of June 2015 for development of 100 cities and smart cities. Selection of 100 smart cities has been completed through 4 rounds of selection from January 2016 to June 2018. A total of 5,151 projects worth rupees 2,05,018 crore were proposed by 100 smart cities as part of the smart cities proposals that are under various stages of implementation. The smart cities are expected to complete their projects within 5 years from the date of selection. As on 22nd January 2021, 5,416 projects worth rupees 1,76,908 crore have been tendered, out of which 4,628 projects worth rupees 1,41,600 crore are under implementation or are completed. The central government has released 22,822 crore as central share to 100 smart cities, out of which 18,403 crore has been utilized by smart cities. Under Smart City Mission, the focus is on sustainable and inclusive development. The purpose of mission is to drive economic growth and improve quality of life of people by enabling local area development and harnessing technology. Smart City Mission has adopted 2-pronged strategy: area-based development and pan-city development. Under area-based development, compact areas are taken up for comprehensive development of physical, social, institutional and economic infrastructure through one or more greenfield retrofitted redevelopment models. Pan-city development envisages application of smart solutions in a city-wide manner, including components such as, but not limited to, integrated command and control centers, smart solutions for waste management, parking, clean environment, flood management, governance and improvement in citizen services. The mission is implementing projects in diverse areas such as mobility, built environment, non-motorized and public transport, water and waste water, renewable energy, solid waste management, affordable housing and safety and security of citizens, health and education. Comprehensive development through a combination of area-based and pan-city approaches will improve quality of life, create employment and enhance income for all, especially the most marginalized and low-income groups in cities and urban areas. Well, that's it in this edition of Question Hour. Hope you like our program. You can also catch all our programs on the online platform of YouTube.
Take care, stay safe and goodbye.